Still kind of taking it in. Mike, what about you, man?
Yeah, so full transparency, I'm in the At Games YouTuber Skype chat. One other thing I've got to disclose, I also have an NDA with At Games. When it comes to Arcade 1-Up, I do some stuff with Arcade 1-Up. I'm in the beta tester program, and I have an NDA for that. And I've also recently been helping them with, I don't have a contract or I don't get paid with some of their 1-Up stuff. I'm not connected to Zen, but sometimes they reach out to me and they'll send me like pinball games to play in. But I do have an NDA with That Games as well.
Who cares? Everyone has NDAs with every company on the planet.
I'm trying to be open and transparent. Let me finish. I got to do this again in 15 minutes. Apparently,
you've done a disclaimer every 3 minutes. Every time Michael B does a disclaimer, you have to take a shot.
There's nothing wrong with being open and transparent. I also have an NDA with That Games. I have an NDA, but I do have an NDA with That Games as well. I have an NDA. I also have an NDA with That Games. I have an NDA, but I do have an NDA with That Games as well. I have an NDA.
Who cares?
Hey, welcome everybody. I'm James from James Hates Everything. And if you've been paying any attention to the home arcade community over the last week or so, a controversy that's been stirring for a long time continues to influence some of the top influencers in the community. As you've seen there, notably Michael B has now become obsessed with what to disclaim and how often to disclaim based on the advice of another influencer. Leading up to that, there's lots of confusion. It's not easy to follow when you have to disclose a connection to a company or an employee of a company or to a product. For a lot of people, it seems clear, but it's not clear. And so I thought we'd talk today, just go through the laws, regulations from the FTC in the United States, and then we'll talk a little bit about Europe and Canada. But before we do that, I have a little disclaimer of my own to make. Just so you know, this information provided in this video it should not constitute legal advice. It is for informational purposes only. Choosing a lawyer is an important decision, and it should not be based on advertising. All right, I've said my piece. So let's get to it. Let's first take a look at some of the recommendations from the FTC. So you can access this information on the FTC's website, but I'm here to share it with you, and we'll just jump in. So let's talk about, first up, when do you need to disclose? And you can see here, disclose when you have any financial, employment, personal, or family relationship with a brand. Financial relationships aren't limited to money. Disclose the relationship if you've got anything of value to mention a product. That can be as little as a free download code to download a game. Or it could be you've been sent a product like from New Way Toys or from Arcade 1-Up because they've asked you to do a review or anything to that extent. So literally anything that can be considered of value. And we'll come back to that because even appearing on a brand's own channel can be considered value because it exposes you to a larger audience and is essentially advertising you in their brand. So if a brand gives you a free or discounted product or other perks, and then you mention one of those products, make a disclosure even if you weren't asked to mention that product. So again, even if you've gotten something, but they never asked you to talk about it. So let's say like Michael B or Travis MCP, you're a member of a beta program. And, they like to talk about the NDAs. The simple fact is getting firmware in advance does require disclosure that you've received something. It is of value getting something released before other people. So you have to mention that even if they haven't asked you to advertise any of their products. When you talk about one of their products, you have to mention that. Now, Again, you need to not assume that your followers already know about your brand relationships. So you may host an Arcade One Up show, may have been sent cabs in the past. May have recently been sent one like B Kong. But regardless, you have to mention it, and you have to continue to mention it anytime you talk about their products. So if 6 months from now, B Kong reviews a new Arcade One Up cab like the Pac-Man XL, he's going to have to disclose that he received a Time Crisis cab from Arcade One Up. And then, of course, make disclosures even if you think your evaluations are unbiased. So again, we'll come back to that idea of unbiased, and your reviews or evaluations, because they have to be honest. You can't lie or distort your opinion in any way. Uh, I, like most people, trust Michael B, P-Dubs, all these guys. There are a few, they have their critics that call them shills. I think it's pretty clear if you watch any of their videos, they're both positive and negative about any one of these companies' products, but they still need to make sure that uh, they continue to be honest throughout their. Okay, now, this gets into another thing that Michael B has done recently. It says here, keep in mind that tags like pins and similar ways of showing you like a brand product can be endorsements. So that's not necessarily what I was talking about, but we'll talk about what kind of off. So we'll come back to that. If posting from abroad, again, this references those in the community that are from Canada or Europe. U.S. law applies to you if it's reasonably foreseeable that the post will affect U.S. consumers. Foreign laws might also apply. Again, why we're going to review Canada and Europe's around this. If you have no brand relationship and you're just telling people about a product you bought and happen to like, you don't need to declare that you don't have a brand relationship. So again, if you don't have any relationship, you've never received any product, you've never received any software, you don't have a relationship with the company, whether business or personal, and you just like to review products in the space, you do not have to disclose anything. So how do you disclose? And again, this is going to go back to some of the things Michael B has been doing recently that have drawn criticism from his co-hosts and others in the community, but is actually more on target than any of them when it comes to this. So make sure people will see and understand the disclosure. Place it so it's hard to miss. The disclosure should be placed with the endorsement message itself. So that's if you're paid to endorse, but essentially when you're doing a review. And this is what I was referencing earlier about what Michael B is doing in his videos today that is not good. It says disclosures are likely to be missed if they appear only on an about me or profile page at the end of posts or videos or anywhere that requires a person to click more. So if you're putting your disclosures in your show notes, there's nothing wrong with that, but that cannot be the only place you disclose this information. You have to disclose your relationship with a brand both in audio and visually in your videos. If your endorsement is in a picture on a platform like Snapchat, Instagram, you have to disclose on the picture itself. We'll just skip through here. Don't mix your disclosures into a group of hashtags. If you're making endorsement, the endorsement should be in the video and not just in the description. Again, we talked about that later. Viewers are more likely to notice disclosures made in both audio and video. Some viewers may watch without sound, and others may not notice superimposed words. So again, both audio and visual. And this gets to what Michael B has been doing in his live stream, which is what he should be doing. It's the correct behavior, although excessive. He probably reduce the frequency. But if you're making an endorsement in a live stream, again, an endorsement doesn't have to be a paid endorsement. If you have a relationship with a brand and you're talking about the brand or any of its products, it's considered an endorsement. So if you're making an endorsement in a live stream, the disclosure should be repeated periodically so viewers who only see part of the stream will get the disclosure. So you can't go wrong by posting your disclosure at the beginning, the middle, and end. If you're doing a very long stream, maybe you want to mention it a time or two. Again, use simple, clear language. Uh, if you're definitely being sponsored, you got to make sure terms like advertisement, ad, and sponsor. Um, thanks to Acme brand isn't enough. You got to go beyond just saying it's an ad or it's a sponsorship. You actually have to talk about it. On a space limited platform like Twitter, terms like Acme partner, Acme ambassador, where Acme is the brand name, are also options. So again, if you're making a post about a brand, you need to throw in there that you're associated with the brand in some way. And it's fine, but not necessary to use hashtags as part of your disclosure. And don't use vague or confusing terms. So don't abbreviate, spell it all out, all that fun stuff. The disclosure should be in the same language as the endorsements yourself. So for our Canadian friends, don't put it in, don't uh, give an endorsement in English and then your disclosure in French, unless you do both. And don't assume that this platform's disclosure tool is good enough. So if you're clicking the link in your YouTube videos that says this video includes paid sponsorship, that is not enough. It's important to do that if you have a paid sponsorship, but does not constitute disclosure. Okay, so enough of that. So let's stop sharing that. And we're going to jump over to some examples that I think will help drive home what you need to do. Let's see. So first off, we're going to go to the disclosure of material connections. So this is an important section because it's going to discuss what you have to disclose and right, why you have to disclose. So when there exists a connection between the endorser and the seller of the advertised product that might materially affect the weight and credibility of the endorsement, and the connection is not reasonably expected by the audience, such connection must be disclosed clearly and conspicuously. Material connections can include a business. So, did you work for them or do you work for them? A family or a personal relationship. They can include monetary payment or the provision of free or discounted products, including products unrelated to the endorsed product. So this goes back to the example I gave, Kong. If he's going to talk about an Arcade 1-Up cab in the future, has to disclose that he's received free cabs in the past from Arcade 1-Up. Products to an endorser, regardless of whether that advertiser requires an endorsement in return. Again, just even if they gave it to you, didn't ask for a review, didn't ask for anything, it still counts. You got to disclose. Material connections can also include other benefits to the endorser, such as early access to a product or the possibility of being paid, winning a prize, or appearing on television promotions. So this may even go to those of you in the audience. If, as an example, Arcade 1-Up, and I have that hat behind me, gives away a cab like Blitz when it launched. They had an online promotion that said if you posted a certain hashtag, made comments about Blitz, that you would be entered to win a free cab. Sorry, lost train of my thought. So when you do that, you have to disclose that is a basically a contest or a paid advertisement, so as to not dupe consumers who may have seen your social media post. We'll get into some other things here in just a minute about things Arcade 1-Up is doing that is likely in violation of these FTC guidelines. But for now, let's continue. So some connections may be immaterial because they are too insignificant to affect the weight and credibility given to an endorsement. A material connection needs to be disclosed when a significant minority of the audience for an endorsement does not understand or expect the connection. So, some of the critics that have gone after Rexer and other people have complained that he's out there endorsing, um, the the products like the Akari Boyer's stick and from Thunderstick Studios because he's good friends with the owner. Um, Again, there is a material connection there. There's a personal relationship. If you're out there saying this person is your friend, you have to disclose. Well, we'll jump into another example maybe, but I'll go ahead and mention it here. One exception to that is if you have a guest on your show and you don't necessarily have a connection to that guest is say from Arcade One Up or from Thunderstick Studios, or if I get the name wrong, I apologize. Um, it if they are a guest on your show and they're talking about their product, you don't have to disclose anything. There's no disclaimer needed. The audience should be fully aware that the representative from that company talking has a bias for their product. So there's no need to disclose for either of you situation. And then a disclosure is material connection does not require the complete details of the connection, but it must clearly communicate the nature of the connection sufficiently for consumers to evaluate its significance. So you don't need to get into the nitty gritty about how you know somebody or what that connection is, only that the connection exists. If it's insignificant, like we bumped into each other uh, at a convention and we had a conversation, or you've interviewed them in the past, those are pretty immaterial. That they don't constitute a real connection and don't really disclose. Okay, so let's jump into an example, and this is a good one here that the FTC provides down here. So, um, again, this is one that a lot of influencers may be guilty of, so that's why I want to cover it. Um, it says example 7. So, a woodworking influencer posts on-demand videos of various projects. A tool manufacturer sends the influencer an expensive full-size lathe in the hope that the influencer would post about it. The woodworker uses the lathe for several products and comments favorably about it in videos. If a significant minority of viewers are likely unaware that the influencer received the lathe free of charge, the woodworking should clearly and conspicuously disclose receiving it for free, a fact that could affect the credibility that the viewers attach to the endorsement. Manufacturer should advise the woodworker at the time it provides the lathe that this connection should be disclosed, and it should have reasonable procedures in place to monitor the influencer's postings for compliance and follow those procedures. So again, you get a free cab. For purposes of review, you need to disclose. If you get a mod kit from somebody, just because they want you to check it out, and you mention that mod kit or the marquee, replacement marquee, the coin door, anything like that, you have to disclose that information. So the next one, and this is the one that I mentioned, Arcade One Up is likely guilty of. We're all familiar if you've been on Reddit or Facebook. They're the Arcade One Up leaks that likely come from internal employees at the company. So let's go through this. An online community has a section dedicated to discussions of robotic products. So Facebook, let's say Arcade One Up and their official Facebook fan page. Community members ask and answer questions and otherwise exchange information and opinions about robotic parts and developments. Unbeknownst to this community, an employee of a leading home robot manufacturer has been posting messages on the discussion board promoting the manufacturer's new product. Knowledge of this poster's employment likely would affect the weight and credibility of the endorsements. Therefore, the poster should clearly and conspicuously disclose the relationship to the manufacturer to limit its own liabilities for such posts. The employer should engage in appropriate training of employees to the extent that the employer has directed such endorsements or otherwise has reason to know about them. It should also be monitoring them and taking other steps to ensure compliance. Disclosure requirements in this example would apply equally to employees posting their own reviews of the product on retail websites or review platforms. So again, even leaks that likely needs to be disclosed that you work for that company. So next up, got one more example down here for this section, and this covers a little bit of, let's say you have received a paid advertisement. And so it's common in podcasts and YouTube videos for somebody to be paid to do an ad read from a company, right? So in this example, near the beginning of a podcast, the host reads what is obviously a commercial for a product. Even without a statement identifying the advertiser as a sponsor, listeners would likely still expect that the podcaster is compensated, so there is no need for disclosure of payment for the commercial. Depending upon the language of the commercial, however, the audience may believe that the host is expressing their own views in a commercial, in which case the host would need to hold the views expressed. So again, paid advertisement, if you're just talking about a product, been paid to read this ad and none of it says you think this or you feel that about a product, you're fine. You don't need to disclose anything. As soon as you give an opinion as part of the language of that, say you used something for a while, uh, how much you've enjoyed it, et cetera, you have to then disclose the nature of your relationship. And then example 13, this goes back to how the NDA or the beta program likely violates disclosure or requires disclosure, not violate. But you fail to disclose, then it violates. So an app developer gives a consumer a game app to review. Consumer clearly and conspicuously discloses in the review that they were given the app, which normally costs 99 cents for free. That disclosure suggests that the consumer did not receive anything else of value for the review. If the app developer also gave the consumer $50 for the mere disclosure of the app was free would be inadequate. So again, disclosing isn't enough. You have to go the extra step, not necessarily give the specifics of a deal, but say in this case, you not only got the free software, but you were paid for the review. You need to disclose that you were paid review. You can caveat that with factual comments about the opinions being your own, but you still need to disclose that you were paid for that particular review. So now we're going to jump up here and bear with me. I know this is a lot to go through. I'm going to jump up to some of these general considerations. So first up, we talked before about it must be honest. So endorsements must reflect you're given an endorsement or you're going to do an endorsement or a paid endorsement from somebody. The endorsement must reflect your honest opinions, findings, beliefs, or experience of the endorser. Furthermore, an endorsement may not convey any express or implied representation that would be deceptive if made directly to the by the advertiser. And regarding substantiation, blah 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 blah. Endorsers may be liable for a statement made in the course of their endorsement, such as when an endorser makes a representation that the endorser knows or should know to be deceptive, including when an endorser falsely represents that they personally used a product. So if you say you use it, you better have used it, is the key there. An endorser who is not an expert may be liable for misleading or unsubstantiated representations regarding a product's performance or effectiveness, such as when representations are inconsistent with the endorser's personal experience or were not made or approved by the advertisers or go beyond the scope of the endorser's personal experience. Now let's take a look at some of the examples here that go well in our thing. So, actually, section. So this top section is the purposes and definitions, but it has some good examples for us to review real quick. Um, so assume that the consumer is the owner of a dog influencer. And in this example, the consumer has been given free dog food uh, by a company. The company didn't ask for any kind of review, anything like that. They just um, know the person really enjoys or buys a lot of their dog food, so they send them a coupon for free dog food for a year. Now, let's assume this consumer is the owner of a dog influencer, which is a dog with a social media account and a large number of followers. If the manufacturer sends the consumer coupons for a year's worth of dog food and asks the consumer to feature the brand in their social media feed, any resulting posts that feature the brand would be considered endorsements, even though the owner could have chosen not to endorse the brand. So, uh, again, this goes back to if they give you access to software, if they give you download codes, if they send you something you already bought on your own and you get a second copy that they gave you free, and they may say, we'd love to have a review, but you don't have to. You got to disclose. If you start talking about that product or that brand, you're going to have to disclose that they sent you some. Uh, example. Here, an influencer who is paid to endorse a vitamin product in their social media post discloses their connection to the product's manufacturer. Only on the profile pages of their social media accounts, the disclosure is not clear and conspicuous because people selling their paid costs could easily miss the disclosure. So this goes about clear, where we've talked about it's got to be visible, it's got to be legible, it's got to be audible. And in the case of live streams, you got to do it multiple times. Now that the influencer discloses their connection to the manufacturer, but then in order to see the disclosure, consumers have to click a link in the post labeled simply more. This goes back to referencing Michael B, so we'll just skip over that. Michael B disclosures in his show notes, I should say. Assume now that the influencer relies solely upon a social media platform's built-in disclosure tool. Again, we talked about that a little bit. You need to be thinking about um, uh, got to disclose. You can't rely on that little button in YouTube video. So you should still click it if you have a paid advertisement. Okay. One. So let's see here. An exterminator purchases fake negative reviews. So the next two I'm going to really focus on influencers themselves and not Michael B or anybody I've mentioned, not Rexer, not Dubs, not Ekongs, but there are those in the community and some people know who they are. But I'm not going to name anybody because I'm not going to accuse anybody of anything I don't have. But uh, let's go through it. So, on how you can run afoul of this endorsement thing. So, an exterminator purchases fake negative reviews of competing exterminators. A paid or otherwise incentivized negative statement about a competitor's service is not an endorsement, as that term is used in the guides. Nevertheless, such statements, i.e., a paid negative review of a competing product, can be deceptive and in violation. Fake positive reviews that are used to promote a product are endorsements. So again, um, yeah. So I think that's pretty self-explanatory. The next section, a motivational speaker buys fake social media followers. Now this is what we know people are doing, right? So the first one you could argue is bot farms. If you're botting to review bomb or whatever, that's considered an endorsement. And guess what? You have to disclose, though. If you're doing that, you're probably breaking other laws. A motivational speaker buys fake social media followers to impress potential clients. The use by endorsers of fake indicators of social media influence, such as fake social media followers, is not itself an endorsement issue. The commission notes, however, that it is a deceptive practice for users of social media platforms to purchase or create indicators of social media influence and then use them to misrepresent such influence to the potential clients, purchasers, investors, partners, or employees, or to anyone else for a commercial purpose. It is also deceptive practice to sell or distribute such indicators to such users. So, you're buying followers. The point is, you better not be taking paid advertise based on purchased followers. It's a crime. It's a deception. You're deceiving the advertiser, and you could be in trouble. So, there you have it. All the boring legal garbage around disclaimers. So, it's what Michael B has been doing over the last week. Somewhat annoying. Yes. Uh, is it in compliant with FTC requirements of disclosure? Mostly. Again, he's not done anything in writing. He's going over the top in the amount of time, but he's on the right track. More so than any other influencer in this community, and honestly, in many other communities. Some of the top influencers you see out there are not in compliance with 2020 guidelines from the FTC. So, should they be afraid that they're not in compliance? The FTC themselves basically says no. So, after all of this, long story short, you should comply. It's the right thing to do. It's the ethical thing to do. But if you don't, uh, you're not going to get hit with a ton of bricks either. So do what's right, disclose properly, but don't stress about it. Don't listen to all the talking heads on you know, Reddit and Facebook and in their other videos, just using this as a way to attack or criticize the people they're jealous of, or a way to use anger and hate to climb up and promote themselves. It's just simply, there's just simply nothing there. You can go to the biggest YouTubers there are, um, Mr. Beast, um, you know, he has all kinds of things he's done. Lots of them are promoted by companies that pay them. They don't necessarily fully disclose that all the time. They do disclose it as much as they can, but they don't even do it in compliance, right? So they may read that they were provided a product in their thing, but they don't necessarily put it on the screen every time. They do try their best to do it, but I guarantee it's not in 100% compliance. So what the FTC is looking for, and this is what they say in their guidance, is good faith effort. And even if you are ever found to be in violation, they are not going to care unless you refuse or you ignore their request for you to rectify those situations. So again, don't stress, don't listen to this garbage. Um, it's just a distraction. It's more toxic BS that is causing the quality of content to go down. It's just a giant distraction. This community should be about fun. It should be about enjoying retro games, arcade games, all the exciting announcements like Zen coming to ALP, or the more interesting rumor millish ones like Scott Bacharach being outed from Tastemakers and Arcade One Up. Whatever the deal, you know, all I can leave you with is go back, think about the ethics of the situation. Have you received anything? And should you disclose? Probably you should, but you don't need to beat people over the head with your disclosures. Just do it. Just get it out of the way. Easy ways to do it. Brief mentions. You saw my ridiculous banner up there earlier. That's another good way to do it. Just do it. Don't fret about all the comments. Don't worry about being perfect. Just put a good faith effort in, and you're not going to run into any problems. And uh, with that, I hope you will, if you've enjoyed this, I know it's mostly rambling. I'm just throwing this together. Um, but hopefully you've learned something. If you have any, if I got anything wrong, post in the comments, let me know. I'd love to fix it, love to set the record straight. Please source that, so we can provide some of that information. And again, like and subscribe. And with that, I am out of here.